Hello, and thank you for listening. We're Suzanne Henwood and Liz Peel-Yates, and this is our podcast, Real Wisdom. Real Wisdom is a podcast series exploring the complexity, depth, and reality of using MBIT coaching to thrive in the real world.
We're not offering medical, legal, or financial advice, but we are having real, deep, uplifting conversations with amazing people who have persevered through adversity or challenge and who still keep smiling. If you want to know more about how MBIT is changing the world one life at a time, listen in. Thank you.
So Liz, we put out an announcement that we were going to be running a podcast called Real Wisdom. And we said bravely that we would come on first and have the conversation with ourselves about our own stories, some of our vulnerabilities, and kind of just show people what to expect if they agree to come and have a conversation with us. So we haven't got this well mapped out or planned. We've had a brief conversation about what might be there, and we're going to let it flow and just see what we come up with. Our aim was, just as a reminder for people listening, we want to get real and authentic about coaching, about embraining, and about change, that there is no magic bullet, that we have to do the hard yakka, and we have to be real with ourselves, and that sharing that realness, we believe, will inspire other people and encourage them also to get real and deep in their own lives, whether they're MBIT coaches or not. What would you add to that in terms of what we're about?
I think that's lovely. Yeah, that describes it beautifully. I think having people's different perspectives on how they have used embraining as coaches, as clients, and that reminder of how there are some things we can do ourselves, but there are some things that we absolutely need support with, and we as coaches need that reminder as well. There's a real temptation when you are a coach, you're focusing so much on looking after other people and working with other people that it can be a bit of a worry, and you feel like you're doing the work. And we get really, really good at convincing ourselves that we are doing the work, and actually we can't see our own blind spots. We know that that's what we do with other people, but I think hopefully this will be a really good reminder for us as coaches, that there are things that we need support with, and how that, as you were just saying before we came on, how much that can then enrich not only your human becoming, but that of your coaches, and how much better a coach you are when you really walk the talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I had an amazing 2-hour session with someone, I'll name them actually, because they were awesome. MBIT coach Britta, from Auckland, Britta Christensen, and she was just amazing yesterday and absolutely held that space for me as a client. Did an amazing job. I got such a deep transformational shift yesterday on something that was hooking in and holding me back. And yeah, I'd done a lot of work on that myself, but I couldn't chose not to do that on my own. And so I'm absolutely okay with going and getting support from different places. Britta's also a havening coach, so I deliberately chose to work with somebody who had that somatic expertise as well, because I felt like it was something that was hooked into my body at a somatic level. So yeah, we want to be real with ourselves and with the people listening, that yes, we're coaches, we're on that road to mastery, and yet we are still learning. And the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know, which of course is a sign of mastery. So yeah, we thought we'd start by sharing some of our stories, where we're at, how we use embraining. We don't know where it's going to go. We haven't discussed who's going to go first. So as I'm talking, I'm just going to go, Liz, tell me about some of your story, in terms of that real life complexity of, it's not all rainbows and bright sunshine. Life sometimes throws us real curveballs, and we have to stop and breathe and really work a little bit to get through. Tell us a bit about your story.
So last year I did Master Coach with you last summer, and it was the most, I mean, you saw me, I was practically giddy throughout the whole thing. I couldn't get enough of it. It was amazing, and I felt so inspired and so ready to step up and to step out. And I had a physical reaction to it. My body had literally been vibrating with the anticipation of the course for months. And then after it had finished, I ended up in hospital within weeks, with a sort of undiagnosed gut thing. And as a result of that, I completely lost who I was, my inspiration, my motivation, my very reason for coaching. Actually, I didn't lose my confidence, but I felt like I'd lost my way. I didn't want to run my business anymore. I didn't know who it was for. And all of a sudden I felt like authenticity and integrity are kind of my core values. If I literally feel it, if I'm not being me, I can't coach, I can't do anything. It feels so strong for me now. It's so important to me now that I can't function without it. And 4 and a bit years ago, I had breast cancer, and it along with all the hard stuff, it was a really, really positive experience, and it gave me a huge drive and zest for life, and it really inspired me to do all the work I was doing. But then all of a sudden, it was like I had lost that. Like, cancer's so 4 years ago, it's not relevant anymore. Who are you now? And I worked with an amazing coach, MBIT coach, in the winter. And what she helped me discover was a fear of being myself, that it wasn't safe to shine, that it wasn't safe to put your head above the parapet and claim everything you said you wanted to do. And I think when we were a master coach, I'd probably for the first time kind of stepped up and gone, I'm ready, I'm in this, I'm doing this. And my body went, no, you're not, it's not safe. And what I realized during the session was that when I had cancer, because no one particularly wants cancer, that it's all right for you to be amazing during that time. People are really inspired by you when you're going through really traumatic experiences, because it makes you brave and inspirational. Whereas if you were being that person without that perhaps more challenging part, that might not be okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And I realized that I hadn't ever really given myself permission to be me. And it shifted everything. It made me realize that actually it wasn't cancer that had made me all bright and shiny and amazing. It was me that was there already. And it was another experience that I got through. It was another opportunity to grow. But what it made me realize is that we get hit so many times. We think we've overcome something, we think we've grown, we think we're okay, and then we get hit by another truck. And it knocked me for 6, but what it's done this time is really helped me realize that actually it's not my positivity and my bouncy tigger-like energy that's the strength. It's actually this really deep resilience that I have and have cultivated over years and years and years of overcoming difficult things. Beautiful. And that I don't need to fear the really hard traumatic times, because I have the tools and I have the emotional, I think, awareness and flexibility I guess to be able to sit in the dark and to have faith that eventually there will be learning and it will be beautiful, rather than pushing it away, rather than not having to feel it, but to ride it like a wave and allow myself to go really deep into it, and not be afraid of pain and anger and anguish and sadness and all the feelings.
So can I interrupt you in the spirit of conversation?
Yeah.
Someone listening who maybe recognizes in themselves a pattern that, you know, life's kind of thrown them that message a few times, and maybe they've done a bit of work and maybe they've moved on and maybe they haven't. How do you do that? How do you be okay deeply reconnecting with yourself to be okay with the Tigger happy bouncy and the Eeyore, oh, another day? What do you physically do to kind of come through that whole experience, not bitter and twisted and angry and hurt and broken and sick, but to come through going, actually, I have this beautiful light inside of me, and it wouldn't be me not to let it shine?
I know this is a conversation about what we've learned with embraining and MBIT, and it seems like a kind of it's the ability to go inside, and with everything that I've learned, especially with Loving Your Life, with Grant's Loving Your Life program, that way of exploring and cultivating compassion and being able to savor and be curious, to be able to step out of whatever I'm feeling and be curious about that and wonder rather than criticize, or find gratitude rather than fear. Cultivating that ability to know who I truly am, and I think that comes with practice. So you know, every morning waking up and practicing balanced breathing, knowing a bit like when you know with a relationship, that you get to know yourself over time, and you know when you're being true to yourself and when you're not.
So again, for people listening, balanced breathing, they may or may not be MBIT coaches, and at MBIT coach level we teach the basics of balanced breathing. But as you move towards mastery, I'm guessing that your routine for balanced breathing is more than just sitting, breathing evenly in and out for the same length of time. So what else do you do around that time, as well as maybe even at the same time as your balanced breathing, that creates that strength and connection with yourself, that grounding to start the day?
So I have questions that I ask myself,
Such as?
and not always consciously either anymore.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a bit like prayer, and so it's that connection with God, for want of a better word, for me, knowing that sense that I am part of something much bigger. And so I'll say, what will you have me do? Where will you have me go? What will you have me say, and to whom?
Beautiful. Just say
And
that again.
What will you have me do?
Nice gut.
Where will you have me go?
Gut.
What will you have me say?
Head.
And whom?
Whom, connection, heart. Beautiful. I don't know if you consciously realize that that's head, heart, and gut questions.
And they're not mine. They're not my questions. And that helps me come from a place of service. and takes me out of ego and kind of reconnects to that sense of purpose and of feeling inspired. But it's quite, well,
I was going to say, so I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit. I'm trying to listen with ears that don't do this regularly, that don't understand this practice maybe. So I could do all of that from a list. I could have those questions written out on a sheet of paper, and every morning I could wake up and I could read off that list. But I'm guessing that's not what you do. So how do you come from a much deeper level? How do you take those questions so that they're asking your real, true, deep core identity and your soul for someone who hasn't done this sort of work yet?
So the way, I mean, it's funny how when you learn, when you do the coach certificate, we have the roadmap. We go through, we connect with our heart. And one of the ways I really like to do that is imagine my heart opening up like a peony, like a flower, and just opening and noticing, just feeling it open in the morning is really lovely, like it's waking up with the sun. And it's not as conscious as then taking that to my head and going down to my gut, but it's that once you practice connecting with your heart, finding out what your heart truly wants, taking that to your mind and inviting it to play creatively with what you might want, we then take that to the gut. We then and that, for those who aren't MBIT coaches, it's where our identity is. It's where it's about mobility. It's about safety, who we deeply are at a core level. It's about courage. And most people will have had a sense at some point of great danger. They feel it in their gut when they're on a roller coaster. It's a strong sense. With children, you see a child near the road, you feel it physically. And I think it's about practicing that enough so that you don't have to have that, a bit like driving a car. It's that unconscious competence with it, but then also making a conscious choice to be intentional with it.
So, again, I don't want to take you back into that time 4.5 years ago, but we can practice that and we can do it every day and life can go on. And then a great big curveball comes and hits us in the face, hits us in the guts. So you get a diagnosis of breast cancer. Next morning, how do you wake up and still do that?
It's funny. So I'd never even heard of MBIT at that point. I didn't have this language. I wasn't NLP trained either at that point either. I had finished working with my first coach. So what I had learnt about at that point was practicing gratitude. I'd cultivated a practice of gratitude. And the way I started that at the very, very beginning was every morning writing down 3 things I was grateful for and writing them down and why. So I'm grateful for this because. And then every evening before I went to bed, writing down 3 good things about the day. Beautiful. And that was how, by that point, that was, and then I developed that into, let's say, being stuck in the post office in a queue or in Tesco or in a traffic jam. And instead of feeling frustrated, practicing gratitude. And I did that by writing post-its in places where I might get frustrated and setting reminders on my phone, so that it then became something that now I don't even have to try. It just is, it's part of who I am now, is finding appreciation amidst challenging things. How about you?
Well, people might say, well, aren't you lucky that you have that mindset? Aren't you lucky that you can turn that into a positive? And I guess I just want to throw back the challenge to them, going, it doesn't just happen. You have to make a choice, and you have to do that action over and over and over again, even when you don't feel like it, to get to the point where it looks like it's completely natural and it's part of who you are.
Yeah. And I was really, I'd had a huge breakdown just before I was diagnosed. So at the time I was diagnosed, I was signed off sick, and had been battling, and I use the word battling because I was fighting against it at the time, with depression and anxiety, and trying to practice gratitude and wondering why it wasn't working. But
we can do gratitude at a head level sometimes, eh?
we can.
Or
we
try
can.
to.
We can, but it is something that I worked hard at. It's something that I decided was really important to me, and so I was prepared to work hard at it.
Beautiful.
And
I think that's what people need to hear, right? It takes intention and choice and hard work, and doing it again the next day, and doing it again the next day, and doing it again the next day.
I work with a coach, an MBIT coach, who, and I don't know where she got it from or whether this was hers. She said it's a lifetime commitment and a daily practice, or the other way around.
Beautiful.
And I think that's absolutely right. And it's like anything we do, where, you know, you might go for a massage, or you might go to the spa and it tops you up a little bit, or you might, you know, go for a walk a few times and feel a bit better. But actually, if you stop, or let's say you train for a marathon, when you stop training after the run, you know, your fitness is going to go again. Unless you keep training, your fitness will go again, and so you won't be able to run that marathon. And actually, part of the way I've learned that is by not practicing it every day and feeling the consequences.
Yeah. And sometimes in that moment we make a choice where we think, it's gratitude time, and then we don't do it. And that's the real life, I guess, that we want to explore, in that we're in no way trying to suggest that there's a perfect way forward, where, you know, we're all trying to get to that point where we do it every day, and we're always going to have curveballs being thrown at us. We're going to have days where, like Eeyore, we don't necessarily want to get up and come to the party, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's real life too.
Yeah. And I think for a long time, you know, I've gone through phases with writing gratitude journals, and longer and shorter phases when I do and don't, and times when I thought, if I don't write it down, it'll be fine because I don't need to anymore. And then noticing quite quickly how it actually affects, you know, how easy it is to stop doing it mentally.
Yeah.
You've
just done a beautiful advert for my next book, by the way. I don't know if I've told you about my next book.
You haven't told me in detail about your next book. Go on.
It's just gone out to a few people to say, hey, this is the gist of every page, and does it make sense, and what do you think? So it's 100 days of embraining gratituding. And yeah, getting that discipline into the body of every day, guiding people through head, heart and gut and pelvis and ANS of gratitude, with guided questions, reflections. So hopefully by the end of the 100 days, it's in their body, it's in their cells, and it is just natural to them to do that every day.
So what inspired the book?
What inspired the book? I got a beautiful Christmas present from my good friend Karen Falconer from ANLP for Christmas. And it was a gratitude journal that was based on a very simple form of recording every day. And I thought it was absolutely beautiful. It was the perfect gift for me. And I was curious what that would look like if it was an embraining version of that, and how much more we could offer by having a multi-brain gratitude diary every day. And so that was the inspiration for it. And I'm a strong advocate of gratitude. I do gratitude, I wouldn't say absolutely every day. I do in my prayers, but I don't write it every day. It was one of my survival mechanisms after the house fire. So I created on Facebook, actually, a beautiful pulling together of stories inspired by a lady called Nikki, who was writing a Facebook post called 1,000 Days of Grace. And she had been diagnosed with breast cancer and every day wrote something of God's blessing in her life. So when the house fire happened, and I was aware of that and was following that Facebook post and page, I created what I called my Phoenix Gratitude Diary. That I would, one, let people know where we were in the process, but also use that as my way of coming back to gratitude when sometimes we didn't feel like it. And it wasn't absolutely every day, but it was regular. And some days it was hard. Some days I had to dig deep and my sarcasm kick in, and I'm really grateful today the builder even got in touch. But it was an absolute key component of setting that mindset to be positive, uplifting, and of getting through that whole event without any stress. So yeah, I'm a strong advocate for gratitude anyway. So the inspiration was dual, I guess, from my own experience of using it, and then from this beautiful book that I got as a gift at Christmas.
Lovely. So you said you do gratitude.
I do gratitude.
How do you do gratitude?
Like you, disciplined, writing, regular, and within my prayers. So also speaking, feeling it, particularly at the end of the day. I tend to do my writing at the beginning of the day, and then at the end of the day is within prayer. Grateful for things, people, events, whatever comes to mind at that point. And I did start by doing, my initial road into gratitude was one of those very small diaries that maybe had like a little inch per day. And I used to write things in each day. But I quickly found that it wasn't enough space. So I don't limit myself to 3 things, because actually, for most days, it's a lot more than 3.
Yeah.
Especially if you then write that beautiful bit about the why beyond it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And does it become, so for that was how I started, that kind of 3 things. It's now become more of a journal and appreciation and noticing distance traveled. It's how I've practiced self-compassion and recognizing where, I'm having a really, really hard day, and instead of comparing myself to the best version of me, I've recognized that today getting up and getting head to school on time was epic, and I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
That what I didn't do, what I didn't achieve. So it's become part of, I've incorporated it into other practices that also go towards helping me be really okay with where I am, and honoring the different energy levels that I have, and not needing to be on fire all day every day. Being okay with there being days where I can light up a room and hold space for 100 people, and other days where I literally can't write a text message or speak to anyone.
And that's okay.
And
loving yourself deeply anyway.
And that takes time and practice.
So let's explore some of these other questions then that we might be asking our guests in the future. First one, what's your most profound experience of loving your life to date? Oh, maybe I just say that a bit slower. What is the most profound experience of loving your life to date?
I genuinely think it's how I love my son every day. There is something about the way we're able to love our children, I think, that is so open and unconditional and full of grace. And with everything that I've learned through embraining, through loving your life, I am such a different parent. I literally savor and appreciate him so much more every single day and every moment. Yeah.
Beautiful. I can see it in your face. It's just gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
How about you?
Well, for me, most profound experience of loving your life to date. So I think for me, that was probably only about a week ago. So about 10 years ago, maybe not even quite as long as 10, I remember when I did my first ever MBIT coach cert, when you do your chapter 9ing statement at the end, I said to Marvin and Grant, I think I can genuinely say for the first time I love myself. And that was a massive shift for me. And it stuck with me for a long while. But recently, with a few things going on, it was like it was okay, but it wasn't all that I needed, and I couldn't quite work out what was missing. And I had a couple of challenges, and I walked down the beach, and it was like I was still into the temptation of, is it all about me? Am I such a horrible person? Am I truly evil? You know, all those old head-based questions that your head comes up with to try and, be your inner critic. I'm sure lots of people could relate to that. And I was talking to my husband, and I can't remember what he said. He's not a coach. He said something that made me ask myself the question, would I want to have a friend like me? And there was this absolutely deep, gut-based, hell yeah. And that loving me turned into liking me. And the realization that you can love yourself, but not necessarily like yourself. That you can love out of a sense of duty because you should. But liking yourself is an absolute choice. Would you choose to be with you? Would you choose to have a friend like you? So, my most profound experience to date is probably that one. And it was very recent. And I came out going, hell yeah, I want a friend like me. And making me realize all the positives of that in terms of, what I bring to other people in that kind of relationship. So
That's lovely. That's awesome.
It was a biggie.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. So I think some of the others we've answered, but one we haven't at the end, and I don't know if I've heard this word before or whether I made it up this morning, but I came up with the question of how do you do MBing? So every day, not as a coach, not as a master coach, as a human becoming, and we've kind of touched on it, but every day, for someone who hasn't yet started this journey, what would your wisdom be about what advice would you give around MBing? That this just becomes part of a beautiful way of loving your life so that you thrive and have vitality and transcend, get through whatever those curveballs are that life throws at you.
I think first of all is being really, really connected to your values, your core values of, what's truly important to you, who you be. who you are becoming, and knowing what they are, and not just knowing what they are, but how you practice them, and being deeply curious about how you can find ways to practice those values, and being willing to take every opportunity to check in with how your body feels about everything. And the way we do that with embraining is by breathing, by our balanced breathing. But actually, even just imagining breathing into your body and noticing, making a choice about how things feel, it's that proprioception. Does that feel like it brings me closer to who I want to be, or further away from it?
Beautiful.
And somewhere along the line, I made a commitment to honor that every day, to be curious, and to follow that every day, and to notice how and when I do that. And honoring that deep commitment to living and practicing my values, and as Brené Brown would say, choosing courage over comfort.
Beautiful. Whoa. Sorry, did you say how about me?
Yeah.
How about me for MBing? I think for me, as someone who has lived her life being really busy, filling every moment partly as a distraction from whatever's going on, or so I used to pack every minute of every day with doing something in order not to be and not to feel and not to. So my MBing, the biggest shift for me, and the advice I would give people, is to find that space, to stop and pause and literally just be, as not a waste of time, but as an essential component of living in the world. And there are tools and techniques to do that through mindfulness and balanced breathing and all sorts of things. I use, a bowl that sometimes I will sound and listen to the bowl. Whatever you do to bring yourself into that present moment in stillness and quiet. My biggest learning in MBing has been to do that regularly throughout the day, and just literally stop and pause, reflect, connect inward, and then come back out again and do whatever it was you were doing. But that's been a big change for me.
Lovely.
Okay, so thank you. I'm sure we'll share more of our stories as we go on. We've decided that we're going to do like a quick fire round of questions at the end. So let's test them out on each other. And I have cheekily changed one of them as you were talking, inspired by something you said.
Okay.
So first one, what's your real core value?
You've said it. It's integrity.
Beautiful. If you had a favorite saying, meme, or wisdoming, what would it be?
I don't know.
Quick fire round. Come on, if you did know.
Okay. I want to say there are no shoulds.
Awesome.
So that's what I'm going to say.
I love that. No masturbating. Book recommendation.
Gift of Imperfection, Brené Brown.
Oh, beautiful. And if I had a magic wand, if this pen were a magic wand and I could wave it and you could change one thing in the world right now, what would it be?
I would teach everyone self-compassion.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next podcast will be with a guest. We're going to be shoulder tapping a few people. if you want to come and have a conversation with us about real life, about your stories, your learning, your wisdoming, your ongoing becoming, in order to inspire others, share embraining, share coaching, then get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll book you in as a guest further down the line. Both of our core values is integrity. So if you want to have integrity, if you want to be real and honest to your core, come and have a conversation with us, and let's see who we can inspire through that. Thank you for listening in, Liz and Suzanne, The Real Wisdom.
Welcome to another Real Wisdom podcast with myself, Liz Peel-Yates, Suzanne Henwood, and we're joined by one of my favourite people to talk to, Adrian Hales, who is an amazing MBIT master coach and trainer and poet. Adrian's also up to so many amazing things that I'm going to get you to explain way better than I will, please, Adrian.
Thanks, Liz, for the lovely introduction, and it's a pleasure to be in here as well with Suzanne as well. So great to catch up with fellow MBITers and people that are making a difference in the world. So thanks for having me on. MBIT master coach, MBIT trainer, discovered MBIT, a few years ago, and just got in touch with the power of it and what it could do to change people's lives. So I was like, well, this is definitely something I want to continue to learn. So MBIT master coach, using that now within my coaching and getting profound results. And through my kind of journey, I would say my journey of personal development, you meet a point in that which is almost like a spiritual journey, and you search for answers. And through that, the only way I knew how to communicate at that point was through poetry. So poetry started to flow, and it was a way of me expressing myself. Because for some real weird reason, normal language like words wouldn't do it at that point. So then I started to find a passion for poetry. And recently, I think we spoke before we came on this call around the world's pivoting, it's changing at the moment so drastically. I had to almost change and pivot my coaching business as well, because, I realized that people are in a different situation now. They might want to reevaluate and revitalize their life. So I decided then to create something called Being Superhuman, which is essentially a program which helps people. They might be in a career like a corporate company, or they might be in a small business, realizing that that's not really why they were born, and they feel this deep sense of calling to a bigger purpose. And then I created a 4-week program. Really, it's almost like an accelerator program to get them through those fears and limitations, and actually get them taking action on the thing that they were born to do, rather than just watching, almost like a spectator watching a game. It's to help them get in the game, and it's structured in that way to get them to create their movement, to create their tribes that are actually making a difference, whether that's 10 people in a tribe or 1,000. So that's what I decided to do.
Beautiful.
And you're someone I know who has pivoted several times. Like you've got that down. You can do that. But I'm guessing that each pivot, it wasn't straightforward. It wasn't necessarily easy. But how do you take that and help people do it for themselves?
It's an interesting question. I think one of the most important things is when I certainly went on the search, when I started to go through this spiritual journey, I noticed that something was drawing me into the future. There was some type of bigger purpose, some bigger calling. So I think the first thing is meaning, which is one of the pillars of the program, which is identifying what your life's meaning is, in that moment, what you feel called to, what that deeper purpose is. Because what I found is that purpose tends to pull you towards who you're supposed to be. So you might, when I first came into this journey, I wanted to get into learning and development. That was like 5 years ago. Wanted to be a speaker, wanted to be a coach. I looked at my current situation. And I think my deepest purpose was to change the world in some way. That was about 5 years ago. And I was like, right, what do I need to learn right now in order to get to that point? Well, I had a fear of public speaking, believe it or not. So obviously that was a clear thing I needed to go and confront. So the first thing that I went to do is learn how to overcome that fear by going to do public speaking. And then all those small increments lead you to actually living the life that you were born to. So that's one of the first things that I tend to look at, is the meaning, the deep purpose, life's purpose, what you're truly and deeply in MBIT, we might say, what you're truly and deeply here to do. And who are you supposed to be becoming? Because I think what happens is that we chase a vision of success of what society might tell us. We all know this, that we listen to parents, we listen to advice from friends, all good meaning. But over time, that then we get to a certain level in life where we sit there and go, okay, well, I've chased this role as a corporate director. I've done it. I'm on 100 grand now, and I'm doing coaching, doing learning and development, but something seems to be missing. So it's finding out what that is missing, and then getting people congruent with, this is where I want to go. This is what I want my life to look like, and actually doing it rather than being a spectator on the sideline, actually getting onto the court.
So Adrian, can I just want to kind of pick into some of that. So I'm, say, I don't know, executive C-suite, I'm on my 100,000. I've worked blimmin' hard to get there. Thank you very much. Yeah. I can feel something's not quite right. Something's not gelling together. But I don't want to go and start a whole new trajectory of learning, because I've kind of invested in my career to this point. Where's the real, I want to get to the real juice behind this in terms of what's this really about? So this superhuman bit, this getting into your gut and finding your meaning bit.
Yeah.
You're on a spiritual journey. Not everybody is.
Of course.
Yet. How do you explain that to people who are still walking on the pavement of the high street?
Yeah, I think if you can bring it back down into their terms, is when we, I think people will have maybe a sense of not completely fulfilled, not feeling completely happy, not feeling completely fulfilled. We put it down into basic terms. They may feel a level of conflict going to work every day. Yes, they might be on 100 grand. Yes, they might be a C-suite, but they just kind of get a sense that something is missing, or they feel that sense of unhappiness or fulfillment. So normally the people that I would work with are those people that would have something, that have already made that transition. They might have a project on the side, they might have a coaching business, or they might be trying to do something on the side, but they've not fully made that leap across. So in terms of simplistic terms, normally those people would be unfulfilled, feeling that sense of conflict. I remember when I was in learning and development, actually I love coaching, I love the training side. Yes, I was on 100 grand, but I knew deep down that I was here to impact the world in a bigger, deeper, more meaningful way. Yet I was going into Starbucks every morning, clock watching at 8 o'clock for a whole hour until 5 minutes to 9, and then walking into that corporate company. So certainly with the people that are C-suites and they're a career person, and that's what they love, I would say, great, make the best out of your career, get as many learning and development opportunities as you possibly can, make sure that you, if possible, do sideways moves to move up, and just keep moving up the ladder and keep developing your skills. But if those people, C-suites, directors, heads of, have got something on the side, like a little coaching, little project on the side, my suggestion is for those people is just make small steps, make small increments to bringing that to life. Like, for instance, when I worked as head of an N&D, someone came to me and was saying, look, I've come to a point now in my career, I'm a director, but I'd really love to start a coaching business. And they were thinking about 6 months, 12 months down the line, I need to get a website, I need to get all these things done. And I said, well, it's simpler than that. Sometimes it can be so simple. And what we're recommended to do so simply is just get a business card printed with your name and your coaching business on. It's such a very simple mindset shift, but already that's changing the perception. So that's my kind of experience on it, and that's my advice on it.
Awesome. So what was your kind of moment? You know, you sat in Starbucks for an hour every morning, clock watching, and suddenly you launch into this completely different, I'm going to transform the world.
Yeah.
What was your kind of moment of awakening or moment of realization that shifted you into another gear?
I would say it was a few more years before that, because the 4 years of working in L&D in that coffee shop was like a continuation of building my skills and building my knowledge. But I'll go into the two sections. Many years ago, I worked as a sales director, and the person left on basically on maternity leave. And so I adopted this team without this leader, and I started to get around the team and realized that the team had incredibly low morale, because they were, I would say, belittled a little bit by saying they're not good enough and they're not very good salespeople. And over time, the performance dropped. And then I came in and just treated people very much like I was treated when I played rugby and when I was in the army, just building that team identity and helping support people. Mainly looking at them what they could become, not rather than what they are. And then we turned the performance around. Everyone just started delivering numbers. And many years ago, I just used the GROW model just to help turn performance around. And the person came back after leave, and obviously they didn't like the performance because now it made them look bad. So essentially, they berated me and almost bullied me in a little way, and said if I don't stop doing what I was doing, they would get rid of me in terms of my job. And I remember for the whole 6 weeks of Christmas, just feeling this sense of just anxiety, because my identity had been compromised, or everything I'd worked for had been compromised, and my results had been compromised. And I just thought, what am I doing? And then the first day of the new year, I was supposed to be traveling down to the South Coast to do this big sales training and coaching things. I just handed my notice in. I said, just let you know, I won't be traveling down today. I spoke to HR, hand my notice in today. And they said, well, you can't do that. You know, you're a full-time employee. He goes, well, actually, I've been working very hard. You haven't passed my probation and you keep extending it for no reason. So actually, I only have to give you a day's notice. So here's my notice. They got me to drive down to head office. And I remember driving down to head office, popping my stuff down. This is the M25. And I drove back up the M25. And I can only describe it as a serendipitous moment. But I drove up the M25 and I come up the brow of the hill, and this sunlight just hit my face. And I felt this huge emotion just release. And it was just like this most overwhelming emotion of like I was free. And I just remember screaming top of my voice. Sounds a bit crazy. But then after that moment happened, that's my first awakening moment, because I felt this intense joy, this intense love. And then after that, all these kind of like serendipitous moments started to happen, which was calling me at that point, about 7 years ago, to do bigger work. And I wouldn't say I ignored them. I carried on learning and following these paths, but then I went back into employment because I realized at that point I needed to get some more experience in designing workshops, coaching and learning. And then I did 4 years traveling the world, doing something I really, really love. But I realized that wasn't my destiny. So I'll taper onto the coffee journey. I was trying so desperately in corporate companies to change the world and to make as big an impact as possible and be excellent and be exceptional. But they were only ever looking for someone that just does a good job. They weren't in my job spec. It didn't say, oh, you have to be superhuman or anything like that. You have to change the world. But that's what I was getting called to do. And over time, what happened was there became a conflict. And as I said, many people might be experiencing this. There's a conflict that you, like an incongruence that you know you should be doing this different work. At that point, I learned lots of NLP. I started to get into MBIT. So I knew that was my future. And what I was doing wasn't now in line with my values. And then after 4 years of working in the head of L&D role, I mean, I tried to keep on going with it. I tried to do affirmations, which don't work. I tried to do gratitude lists, tried to have cold showers and tried to do everything to think, why am I feeling like this? I should be grateful and I'm on all this money. And then over time, I realized that I wasn't being truthful to myself. And that's when I handed my notice in for good a year and a half ago.
Awesome.
And then that same feeling happened as I was driving up the motorway. Walked out and found that elating feeling again, that feeling of freedom.
One thing you might not be aware of is for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been interviewing people around making that moment of decision on something. And I think without exception, everyone I've interviewed, they've made these massive decisions, and there's been literally a moment where they go, right, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and resign, and I'm doing it today, and I know I'm absolutely clear. And one of the things I've been saying to them is just go back to that moment. So the moment before you handed your letter in, but you had made the decision.
Yeah.
And I can say it differently to you because I know you understand MBIT. What brain made that decision to resign that led to that beautiful joy and awakening?
So it's a really interesting one. I think it was a combination between the heart and the gut brain. I can feel it now. The gut got me to take the courageous action, but initially the heart felt the conflict between I want to do transformative work, and at the moment I'm not able to do that. So I think the conflicts within the heart and the gut over that time got me to take the action. So definitely I'd say leading with the gut, but the heart was over time couldn't take that conflict that kept happening. It had to go and do the work that it was meant to do, connect with people and help them and support them.
So just playing devil's advocate, what came first? The gut taking the action, or the heart telling you that there was a conflict and you wanted to change?
I think the first thing that came first was the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the heart, because my values had changed so much at that point. And I can actually remember having this meeting with a guy, someone that came in to do some consulting with me. And they said to me, they're just looking for you to do a good job here. And if you were in banking, you would have got fired now because you're making people look bad. So you can either stay here and turn it down or leave and turn it up. And that was a big thing for me. So he said, off the record, you can either, stay here and turn it down or leave and turn it up. And that was from a psychoanalysis tool, a full page printout of working out all my values levels and working out what persona and all that type of stuff. And that was a real indication for me.
Yeah.
And I think also going back into that in terms of the co-creation side was definitely in there as well, because my uncle is a property developer. He builds property. My granddad had always built property. My dad was an entrepreneur. So then maybe there was some kind of expectation there that actually that was part of my destiny as well. And I didn't want to let them down in many ways. So I think I felt compelled to build my own thing. And actually downstairs I've created a vision board, and I've got bricks on there. So it was all about co-creating something in the world as well. So I think I would say heart and gut was a driver, but actually I would say that deeper gut was a driver, because it was like I wanted to leave a legacy like everyone else had done, something meaningful in the world. I wanted to leave the world and go, okay, well, I've made a difference. So I think legacy was definitely deep there. So
interesting that there's definitely this heart lead, recognize the kind of conflict of values going on, want something else in life, and there's definitely this gut taking action and co-creation and legacy. I'm curious, what happened between recognizing there was a values conflict and taking action?
What happened between recognizing there was a values conflict?
Yeah, in terms of which brain? Because there's one we haven't mentioned yet, and I'm curious where it played its part.
Autonomic nervous system,
No, it's not what I was thinking about, actually.
Head brain. I think
how did you know what action to take?
Very, very good point. Very good point. At that time, I had a coach, so they helped me. And I think a big part, which I'd learned actually, I was going to go into this, is over that time, my self-awareness seemed to increase. I know we say self is gut, but actually my perception and my mind was, I wasn't in my mind at that point, if that makes sense. I was much more aware of my thoughts and things that were going on. So in terms of my self-awareness, at that point seemed to increase over the years. And it got to a point where that was the only logical thing to do. I could not go back. I could not go the other way. I had to go that way. Yeah.
Beautiful. So we've got an absolute values conflict, wanting to change, a perception of self, which is actually head, because we perceive ourselves at, ego level, insular, anterior cingulate, a logical, it has to be this way, and then a gut and deeper gut pelvis response.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful, isn't it? Because knowing M-braining as we know M-braining, when you make that right decision and you drive up over, the motorway and get the joy and the sunrise, and it's the right decision, whoa, that's interesting. We've come back to foundational sequence again then.
Yeah.
So when we make those right decisions that work out well for us, it's often that foundational sequence. And this is what I'm interviewing people on, is just kind of getting people's different stories about that they're not always aware of which brains they used or the order until you really do go and just take me back a step, and then the others kind of emerge.
I think this is amazing. I think the big thing is, over time, certainly over that journey that I went on, I was very aware that I was peeling back the onion layers on certain things in my life, like limitation, like fears. And I was definitely going through a rocket ship in terms of growth. And then I became more aware at that point of the autonomic nervous system. And I didn't know it as that then, but the sixth sense, the serendipitous moments, that feeling of that energetic type feeling as well. And that's something that's over time has seemed that kind of energy that's increased and used in the right way, it can be quite a powerful tool for people, especially in the coaching world.
And you mentioned the spiritual connection. Where's that for you in terms of linking into your body?
What, in terms of on me now? Just what do you mean?
Yeah, so when you want to go to that spiritual level, and maybe your poetry is part of the answer to this, the beyond language.
Yeah.
Where does that sit in your head, heart, gut, ANS, pelvis, or other? Like, where does it sit in the sequence? Where do you interact with it?
I would say that when I sit down deeply, almost like I'm sitting into my own roots of a tree, like really sit down and I'm really silent, but I just allow everything to just sit as it's supposed to do, but go even deeper than that. I just find that I come up with like the first 3 or 4 words and then I'm off then. I find that if I stay out of, it's kind of like pelvis and gut with coming back to heart just to get a bit of inspiration now and again. I'm kind of like here, but I never go past this side. It's kind of at the bottom of the heart and then deep down.
Yeah, and you beautifully showed that even when I asked you the question.
Straight down.
Your hands, we only just saw them just popping up above the kind of camera angle. There was nothing up here.
Yeah.
It's all down here.
That's interesting because it's different for me.
Oh, go on.
For me, it feels like alignment. It feels like opening all the chakras and the connection between what's above and below and everywhere. It is kind of opened up. So it's like it's alignment.
Yeah.
Like the roots of the tree, like saying, but also that connection to kind of like completely opening up the heart, the head chakra, and kind of the crown, and like that.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I get a sense when I'm doing it that I'm not doing it. I'm like watching myself do it.
Yeah.
It's like there's a person here watching me do that, and I'm not aware of it. But then it might be written, or then sometimes it might just be free flow. If I'm walking around the park, I'll just sometimes, not always, but sometimes I'll just start speaking poems for like 10 minutes, trying to get everything to rhyme or to flow. So yeah, I would say in stillness you find it.
And when you're not kind of striving for it.
Yeah, when you force it, when you write poetry with an outcome, I think it doesn't work. I think Alan Watts talks about it is the whole point of life is to join the dance, and we do things to get to an outcome, to get to some type of result, where we miss the whole point of life, which is just to join the dance. And I think poetry just becomes a dance, becomes like an art or a creative form, rather than trying to finish the poem to get to an outcome. Because you might get to the outcome and actually then there's another part of the poem that continues to go. So it just tends to free flow. And it's a way of expressing thoughts. It's like, I remember doing a poem and putting it on the wall at Trainer's Trainer, and someone came up and said, even those 3 or 4 words are so profound, whereas would 3 or 4 words you just handwritten that weren't poems be as profound? And they have so much, as we know, so much rich and depth context around a metaphor, around a poem. People tend to really internalize that and make so much meaning, deeper meaning of what it means to them. So I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, we all have different quotes that somebody's written. They're quite abstract, but also quite meaningful to us. And then we create a meaning of what that quote means to us at that moment in time. We make it fit our model of the world, and they can be incredibly powerful. I mean, I've read quotes that are like 5 or 6 words on Facebook or LinkedIn, and you're having a tough month or a tough week, and that one quote, that one few sentence can change your whole week.
Yeah,
that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
Is that have you just described the magic of that visceral impact when you experience beautiful music or art or poetry or something that's been created from someone in pure alignment, in another place than their head and their logical mind?
Embodied poetry.
Embodied. Yeah. And is that what it is that resonates with us? Is that kind of that connection with what's been created from a different place?
Yeah. I think it comes, like, I believe, I'm not saying that we don't have truth, but I think there's certain places in our body which have the knowing the truth, that take in so much more than we can ever comprehend. Some might say subconscious mind is, is our gut, is everything but head. But I'm just of the view that all these intelligences take in far more information that we can even comprehend head-based. And when we sit into that, obviously all of that inspiration or all of that rich, deep learning for people just tends to flow. And that's where we're at our best, when we're rooted in that.
So let's bring it right back to the cynical, C-suite person walking down the high street who goes, what on earth is this you're all on about? Embodied poetry and superhuman, and we didn't use the word vitality, but we could. What's your wisdom now about helping someone fast track into that superhuman way where you're not really striving, because if you strive for it, you're not going to get there. You want it to come by flow.
Yeah.
How do you guide someone into that moment of natural flow of being superhuman at a much deeper level than just physical ability or mental ability? Or
yeah, it's an interesting one. I think the first thing that we would look at, or first thing that I like to look at, is meaning. So I don't want to use the word sense of purpose because I think that's a little bit cliche, but what's essentially going to give their life meaning? And there's obviously a reason to change at that point in time, because if they were happy with their C-suite, happy earning all that money, I probably wouldn't be talking to them in the first place. So it's understanding what would give their life a sense of meaning. And obviously things like fulfillment, happiness, and overall performance at that point in time is really important. So the first section, as I say, is meaning. So looking at what's the vision for their life. If you had all the money in the world and you could do anything, what would that be? It's looking at their vision and their purpose and what they deeply connect with in the future. Like, for instance, I was coaching someone recently who was earning like 75 grand, really successful, and they chased the society's version of success and they found themselves in a corporate job. Did they truly and deeply want that? No. I think we talk about it in embraining, economics versus authenticity. And now you can go the rest of your life and not find out what that is. But I think deep down, people really do want to do that. And since working with that person on what would give their life meaning, they've still got that job, but they've started a very small coaching business on the side. They've started a blog on Medium. Now they're getting paid for that blog on Medium as well. And then they've started learning the piano again. So and also that person was an actress when they were very, very young, but they were like, oh no, you can never make any money from that. You know, you can't do that. Just go and get a proper job, and found themselves something was missing. So they've gone back into acting. So they're still expressing themselves from that place, which ultimately turns out to be, it ultimately materializes into things like fulfillment, that sense of excitement to actually get up in the morning. And I think what people can find is that if they develop these talents on the side of their job, these small coaching businesses on the side, they will come to a point, as you said, Suzanne, about they will have to come to a decision point. So it's not taking this huge leap, but it's taking those short steps.
Yeah.
You've got a couple of things. You can actually take the leap like I did and it can work out, or you can build on the side and take the leap when you find that the decision point is right.
There is still a moment of leap though, isn't there? Even when you build it up with small steps, there's still a moment where you kind of have to go, you know, blue pill, red pill. It's like,
yeah, I know, as you say, that comes from the gut. And I think for me, at that point, it seems to be not what you're experiencing now, but how do you want to be remembered when you're 80, 90? And that seems to be a big question that comes up. What do you want to be saying to your grandkids, your children? And also, if you're a coach at that point and you're a C-suite and you're talking to your clients that overcome all your fears, live your dreams, your aspirations, you can do it, and you're coming from that place, I would always throw the question back, are you being congruent with what you're telling people? Yeah. Because a big part for me is when I made that decision is like, and actually that informs a lot of my action taking and things I do in life is, how can I be telling my clients to do that if I'm not prepared to do it? Yeah. Like one of the clients I'm working with at the moment, what I've done is I've helped him plan his day through using MBIT. So there's the 3-hour segments of his day on how to use MBIT to create results throughout your life using all the different brains. So the morning is think, plan, and do from 6 till 9, and that's working out. That's channeling your A&S and thinking and planning. And then from 9 till 12, it's doing the hardest thing, which is obviously all gut based and getting that work done with a little bit of heart. Then the afternoon is 3 hours of collaboration, so all connecting with everybody. And then rest and wrap up, which is another 3 hours in the evening, which is getting back into parasympathetic and more balanced. And then reward. So in the evening is something you really enjoy doing is rewarding your day. So we've segmented that into almost like an MBIT in terms of the MBIT brains. Now, before I got that person to do it, I sent them a picture of my Trello, it's called, my plans for the day. Because as I said before, I think it's really important when you come to that decision point is you have to be congruent with what you do. You have to be a model of excellence. And a certain point there is you have to commit to excellence, because if we're telling our clients to do these things, we do have a project coaching business on the side, that is all part of your story. And if you don't do it, I think there's there's an incongruence there somewhere.
Yeah, for me, that's all about integrity, right?
Yeah, as you say, it's all about integrity. You can, and there's a great quote: you can judge people by what they do, not what they say.
Every time. 100%.
And I think it's really important as coaches, if you're going to and get the best results for clients, that's really important. And you find then when you're doing that, is clients turn up to sessions, they become better because you're pushing the envelope, you're pushing yourself. They will also do the same as well. So I think that's role modeling and is so important.
So if an alien landed on the planet, came to London, bumped into you, how would they know you're an MBIT master coach and trainer in what you do on a daily basis?
Because I'll just say, chill out. How would they know that? That's a really good. It's a really good question. It's a really good question. How would an alien know if I'm an MBIT master coach? Obviously, they would be coming into the world, probably looking to attack us. So
they might be friendly aliens.
They might be coming to attack us. So straight away, I've got a baseball bat downstairs. No joking. Straight away, I would go into gut mode, and I'd obviously protect the planet. So they would know. Or if they came down, I would show them. If they were saying like, "Who is your leader?" or whatever like that, we've come in peace. I would show them a huge amount of compassion and understanding, and try and connect with them. And they'd probably ask me, you know, we've looked at the human race, and there's destruction, there's craziness everywhere. Why are you different? I said, well, there's MBIT. That's how.
That's quite a good question, though, Liz. We ought to bring it in.
What a question that is.
We're adding that one.
I'd probably just put out a lightsaber and start taking people out.
Going back to your military roots.
Yeah, going back to military roots. It has actually helped with action taking, I think.
I bet.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue with people, is there's so many people who truly believe they want something, say that they want it, but actually don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And I think getting that gut aligned and really congruent with taking action is such a key part of developing any change. Or
100%. And I think what we typically find sometimes in coaching, it's about empowering. It can be very positive, it can be very nice. And I think it's also important to be a little bit harsh as well, or to be a little bit direct, because that does spur people into action. Now, I remember somebody who was scared of public speaking, but they had a big talk coming up, and they came to like Speakers Club with me. We were sat there, and they were looking up at the everyone speaking, and I said, "Oh, you're going to get up and speak?" "Oh, no, not today. I feel a little bit anxious about it. I feel a bit fearful." And I just turned around and said, "Well, you can either be scared here or scared standing up there," and that really annoyed them. And then the next week they were up there speaking and talking. And sometimes it's about reverse psychology as well. And it's like tough love, doing a bit of reverse psychology and testing people a little bit, because I find that tends to kick the gut into action, because you want to prove someone wrong. They go, "Oh, how dare you speak to me like that?" But if it's coming from good intentions, actually it does help achieve the desired result, because as we say in rugby, sometimes somebody needs an arm around them, somebody needs a gentle push, somebody needs a bit of encouragement, but also somebody needs a bit of, the reverse psychology, I think we call it, to actually get them to take the action. So that works.
Nice. Like almost a mental pattern interrupt, isn't it? Is just to get them out of that thinking. And
100%.
Yeah, I'm all for a bit of provocative MBIT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I claim to be the founder of Provocative MBIT. So.
Brilliant.
You talked about values already, Adrian, but what's your core value?
Core value. I would say standing for other people, standing for the underdog, standing for people that, I don't know how you sum that up in a core value, but I think transformation, it's definitely standing for other people. Certainly people that might feel they're down and out, or society has kind of said, oh, you know, you're not good enough. So those people that are in the middle that want to discover how to win, it's really standing for those people. Not necessarily the people that are hugely successful, that are doing exceptional, but those people in the centre and the superhuman comes from this. It's like superhuman is not this grandiose type of thing. It's recognising that everybody has superhuman talents, gifts, and abilities they haven't discovered yet, or they have and they've pushed down and they've followed a different path. But it's helping those people recognise their uniqueness, their greatness, and their gift they bring to the world, and helping that blossom out. That's why the superhuman is a part of the logo as a flower, is helping that blossom, so they're actually expressing that in the world, and they're inspiring with that superhuman talents, abilities, and gifts that they were born with, that they're not using now, and actually helping them bring that out and make a difference to the world. And I suppose it comes back to, you know, Grant's vision is around co-creation. That is helping other people develop their talent so they can go and co-create. So we almost create like a tomato plant type of thing. And that might be NBIT, that might be something completely different. But whatever that is, that's what I love to do. So I don't know how you would sum that up in a core value. So I'm trying to think what's important to me about that piece. And it's probably people living aligned with why they were born.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So if you had a favourite saying or meme or a wisdoming, what would it be?
Life is just a fleeting glance, an exhilarating dance. Or do the work. There's no shortcuts to any place worth going. That would be another meme as well. Because I think that's so important as well in the world of coaching, is do the work.
There's no elevator to success, as they say.
No, although I've got a little elevator back here.
Yeah. What about a book recommendation?
Wow, book recommendation. I think obviously Embraining is an amazing book, so buy that 100%. I would also say The Untethered Soul is a book recommendation that probably had one of the most transformative difference on my life, because being aware of your thoughts was just so transformational for me. And I think they call that meta consciousness, and that's the first time I got into that, and I was like, oh my, what's happened to me?
Who's me watching me?
It's me watching me, and now I'm just aware of my thoughts, feelings, sense perceptions, and that was a huge one. And then I would say a movement on from that is Eckhart Tolle, The New Earth. And then if you really want to go deep into stillness and find your poetry and find that part, is Stillness Speaks, which is another one she wrote.
Fabulous. If I had a magic wand and you could change just one thing in the world, what would it be?
To stop war. Even being in the military, I mean, I went to Kosovo to do peacekeeping and help deliver medical aids to people. And obviously, I was in the military myself, but I think war is destructive. You know, killing people in mass quantities. I think that if I could click my fingers, I'd stop that 100%.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then finally, if you had just 30 seconds to tell somebody the most important thing they're ever going to hear, what would it be?
Yeah. Whatever.
That's your 30 seconds up. Sorry, it took too long.
We're off air now. That's it. I think whatever gives your life a sense of like inspiration, meaning, like whatever that itch, that thing that you need to express into the world, start cultivating it now. Don't wait for 10, 20 years down the line, I'll just get a job. If you're in a job now and you're doing something on the side, keep cultivating that as much as you do your job. If you're a small business, for instance, and you know that you're here to do something completely different, start making inroads to that. Start expressing that thing that you know that won't go away, because that's ultimately going to fulfill you.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said earlier to me, 100%. Right, you just got to do it. Just got to go and take action and do it.
100%.
Fantastic, Adrian. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. Real wisdom, and you really have shared some real wisdom with us, and we're really, really appreciative of that. We're going to have you back because there's so many things we didn't cover and didn't catch up on. But yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom, and we wish you well in superhuman efforts to help people see what they've got to give in the world.
Thank you very much for having me.